I was on a beach, completely deserted, just me, the logs, the sand, the water. And I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, I went from dead asleep to bolt upright. And there was this being made of light. No words, no label, standing on a cloud of light, but the being was brighter than the cloud. Couldn't tell if it was male or female, couldn't tell if it was old or young, but embodied a message. Didn't say the message, but embodied a message. I always wanted to know, what did Jesus feel that made him live like he did, think like he did, speak like he did, do what he did? Because some of it is real poetry, and you don't do poetry without feeling. I want to have that feeling. What is that feeling, right? So the words I put to that being, there was this being with that message, and the words I put to it was,
hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Udo Erasmus on the show with us today. From a near-death experience with pesticide poisoning, Udo Erasmus turned crisis into his calling. He discovered how oils nourish not just the body, but also the soul. Known as the father of good fats, Udo reveals how food, energy, and spirit are deeply connected. Today, we're going to dive into his journey from adversity to innovation and explore how his discoveries can help us live longer, stronger, and more vibrant lives. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go chat with Udo. Udo, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled that you could join us today.
This is going to be fun. I'm not sure where we're going, but it's going to be fun.
Well,
I listened to you talk to, what's his name? Ferrari?
Alex
Ferrari. Yeah. I listened a little bit to your conversation on that. It's like, this is going to be fun.
He's like my little brother.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love him to pieces, and we just have so much fun when we're together. So, yeah, as I told you, I have pages of questions for you. So I've really been looking forward to having you all to myself for an hour, and everybody that's listening will feel the same way, hopefully. You say we're the most out of nature species on Earth. What do you mean by that?
Out of line with nature.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, every creature in nature is naked.
Right.
They don't wear pants, and they don't wear brassieres, and they don't wear shoes, right? So they wear whatever is biological.
Right.
Okay, so we're out of line, way out of line with that. They all live in the open. We're way out of line in that. They eat everything that they eat is for animals at least, fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, mostly in season. And if we were living in line with nature, we would be eating mostly plant-based.
Okay.
Okay, so we're way out of line with that. There's not a single animal on the planet that fries its food.
Good
right?
point.
You could see you might see a squirrel in a frying pan, but we'll never see a squirrel with a frying pan, right? And then we have created what? Plastics, pharmaceutical drugs, industrial chemicals, pesticides, all kinds of molecules that never existed in nature that we use in medicine, that we use in trying to, it's crazy. We live on a planet where 10% of the biomass is bacteria. All the total human biomass is only 0.1%. So there is 100 times more bacteria on this planet than there is human biomass. And so we think we can kill them all and then be protected, but it doesn't work like that.
No.
So we have to find a way to live in line with nature, within everything that's going on in nature, just like the plants do. The plants are in the dirt, all the rot bacteria are there. How do the plants do that? Oh, they make molecules that protect them. Antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. They create those molecules. They have genes. Genes were created in nature for them to do that. Well, when we eat them, we get the protection they made for themselves from those same viruses, bacteria, funguses. and especially the spices, antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-cancer, anti-cardio, anti-diabetes, anti-autoimmune, anti-cholesterol, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, all just in one spice. Black seed or turmeric.
What's the spice? Yeah. Turmeric?
Black seed or turmeric or curry or ginger or cloves. Unbelievably powerful.
Interesting.
And these are molecules made in nature. So how many of those do we eat or do we use in antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory ways? Oh no, we eat white bread and white sugar and fried oils. So so when you think about it that way, we're way out of line. Okay, what else? We cook our food. Well, in nature, probiotics, which are microbes in our digestive tract that keep the digestion healthy and that prevent unfriendly bacteria from cooking us because they like to live in there because it's warm and there's lots of food. But they would make us sick if they did. So the probiotics protect us from those, right? Well, when we cook our food, we kill them. The animals in nature get them on their food because they cover the food, right? Then they eat raw. There's digestive enzymes in raw foods that if you chew those foods properly, they'll do on average about 60% of the digestion of that food for you. So take a huge load off your digestive and your immune system. But when we cook them, we destroy those enzymes. Now we've just doubled what our digestive system has to do. And it wasn't actually made for that. Then the immune system has to get involved. Then the immune system loses its freedom to do the other things it's supposed to do in the body. And this is all the better living through chemistry and the better looking through all the, better living through all the fancy gadgets we've invented. They all have side effects. And in the sense that they take us away from nature, they take us away from health because health was invented by life in nature. And when we live in line with nature and our nature, then we're going to have the longest, healthiest life that is possible to have given whatever our specific genetic makeup is. So are we living in line with that? Not even close.
No, not even close.
And then if you look at government, so we all have to eat and we all have to poo and we all have to pee and we all have to sleep and we all have to wash once in a while, what is that, every 6 months, whether you need it or not, right? So you have to do, those are basic things about taking care. We need to keep warm in winter, keep cool in summer, have some protection, a little bit of shelter from whatever hurricanes and floods and winds and, volcanoes, whatever, right? So, but when we talk in government, all they do is they talk about ideologies, blah, blah. It's all blah, blah, blah in our head. And it's our head that got us into trouble and out of living in line with nature in the first place. And then they fight about things that are irrelevant. And they completely ignore how do you make the quality of the basics for human beings better. Because Democrats and Republicans have that in common. We're human beings. We got to eat. We got to drink. We got to breathe, right? We have simple basic needs, and some people's basic needs are not met. We could meet them, but instead we sit around, collect a ton of tax money and then bitch about differences in our opinions.
So you're not necessarily telling me to stop shaving my legs and live out in the woods naked, right? You're basically
you know what? I would highly recommend that you do that.
Okay. Yeah.
At least to see what it's like and maybe to appreciate the protections you have.
Yeah. Well, hairy armpits and hairy legs probably are not going to happen for me necessarily.
Okay, but that's not a natural thing because the hair is natural, right? And it's a cultural thing. And in a lot of European cultures, women do not shave their armpits.
I know. Or their legs.
Yeah, and of course, I'm also saying you have the freedom to do with your body whatever you want.
Exactly.
Right?
What do you say to I'm using air quotes, experts who say, well, there are certain plants that you don't need to eat, like obviously poison ivy or something like that. But the plants that have lectins or the plants that have um, oxalates in them or things like that. How do you get around what's your response to those statements that people make?
Lectins are part of nature, and oxalates are part of nature. And when you eat fresh, whole, raw, organic, you actually don't have to worry about it because they're not. But you will see that the people who talk about lectins, they're selling something behind it. And they talk about oxalates. They're selling you something behind it, and they're getting your attention. And what's the best way to get somebody's attention? Scare them,
Fair. Yeah.
right? All the
Yeah.
time.
Right.
And it's, the governments do it, people in business do it, the preachers do it. Everybody has to scare you because then you go into survival mode. And when you go into survival mode, then you will accept things you wouldn't accept if you're just calm and still and, say, well, that's garbage. So there's a lot. So uh, animals don't lie. I guess it's probably because they can't use words, right? Human beings can, everybody's got a good story. Everybody has a good story. Serial killers have good stories. You know, people who people who molest other people have good stories. People who make wars on other people. We all have good stories about everything. Most of those stories are not true. Right? But if you're not educated enough, if you're not present enough in your own space to not be living in fear, in fear you don't make good decisions.
Right.
And then they can make you accept things that are not true. And once you start accepting, what is the saying about it? Um, it's kind of like if they can make you believe things that are not true when they're kids, then you will carry out atrocities on their command as an adult, right? Because when you have a good sense of yourself and I'm talking about physically, mentally, emotionally, in terms of your energy, your power, which is unconditional empowering love. That's our basic nature, or awareness behind it, the divine. If you're present in that, you could tell when it's bullshit. A lot, most of the time. And which is why all the really wise people say you got to get present in your own space. And the more deeply present you are, the better it is.
We certainly saw that in the pandemic, that people were so afraid, and
For sure.
they just lost sight of what really was going on and made decisions that were just crazy that they never would have made. I mean,
We made those decisions.
right, 'cause
Yeah.
we were in a lot of instances, felt like we were being forced to make
Well,
decisions,
yeah, and they also did their best to scare our asses off.
scare
And
us.
they did it through media,
Exactly.
and they did it through the medical profession,
Right.
and, they did it through, all of the spokespeople, and they all said, "We follow the science," and never showed a single scientific study for what they
Mhm.
said they were
Right.
following. You would think they'd show a couple of them. Never showed a single one. And if you actually followed the science said mRNA vaccines are dangerous because you're putting foreign genetic material into your body. You're shooting it in there, not from the outside. It's like respiratory comes from the outside. No, we're shooting it into the middle of our body. And then they go in our cells make something that the immune system has to attack. And then you're asking the immune system to attack the cells in your own body that are making it. Right? So when you look at that, but that's not what we got told. And then it was like, okay, well, you have to do this, even if it doesn't make sense to you, if you want to keep your job, or if you want to see your parents, or you want to travel, or you want to do whatever it was. What would you call that other than super corrupt? super, 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 super corrupt. And there's an enormous amount of corruption that goes on the planet whenever money is involved.
Yeah.
Or maybe power, or maybe whatever it is. People have their goals for whatever they want, right? End up corruption is in science. I was state trained in science. I could design you a study to prove just about anything right or anything wrong just by how I set up the study. And if the study doesn't come out the way I want it to, I just don't publish it. So I then design a better study to show what I want to show, and so science has become corrupt. There are people who are saying the big medical journals, 50 to 80% of what is published in them is financed by the pharmaceutical companies and was designed to make pharmaceuticals look good by setting it up in a way that kind of wasn't objective and wasn't from a calm place and wasn't from looking for what truth is, but was for an agenda that was preordained.
How do we find the truth? How do we do that? Do we pay attention to what resonates with us? And how do we know if it's really something that's resonating or if it's just our imagination or if we're just completely bamboozled by all of the just multitudes of information out there?
Yeah. What a great question. So what is truth?
Yeah. What is truth?
Truth is something that doesn't change when you change your mind. Right?
Ooh,
Or
that's good.
or whatever your opinion is, right? So
Yeah.
if you define truth that way, then literally truth has to be something that never changes.
So what's an example of that?
Okay, so if you as an individual want a truth that doesn't change, it's not going to be on the outside because in the world, everything changes. So your environment changes, people change, your mind changes, your emotions change, your body changes. So it's not in any of those places where you're going to find truth, right? Might find relative truth, but you ain't going to find real truth that never changes. So you have to go deeper into the space your body occupies. And in that space, you will find a flow of energy that is your life, that is a fraction of solar energy, that is unconditional, empowering love for your body, that is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient in your body. And if you look a little deeper into the space your body occupies, you will find an awareness or a presence or a witness or a source or a piece or a field, as the physicists like to call it, or a formless, indestructible, non-changing, dimensionless container or foundation that the religious people might call God if they're not talking about a guy with a long beard. And in that awareness, that's the only thing that is actually true because it is always true.
How does one access that if they have no experience doing that? Is that a developed skill to be able to access that inner wisdom?
The access is a skill, but the place is not a skill. The place is a reality.
Right. But how does one access it?
Well, yeah, this is science, right? Well, it goes like this. I want to study light. I want to know what light is, okay? So I say, okay, so I'm going to go and look into the darkness until I understand the nature of light. Is that going to work?
No,
Why not?
because there isn't light in darkness.
Okay. So I want to get to know you and, you're cool and you turn me on and, I want to get to know you really well and maybe I want to marry you and we think maybe we could have some really cool looking children together, right? So what I do is I only talk to your neighbors. Would that work?
Not that well.
I don't even knock on your door. I don't even knock on your
Yeah.
door. I
Yeah.
just talk to your neighbors or I talk to everybody except you. Is
Yeah.
that going to work?
Probably not too well.
No.
No.
Okay. So if I want to get to know myself, where does my focus need to be?
On
Here.
me.
Here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is why all the wise people who talk about human nature and how to live quality lives all say you need a stillness practice where you leave all your distractions outside and all your mental garbage outside, and you don't blame anybody. You don't distract yourself from it. You sit with yourself and you do what you can to bring your focus into the space that your body occupies. And in that space, you can see something, you can hear something, you can feel something, you can even taste something. And deeper than that, there is a peace that is that big T truth that I was talking about. It's already there within you. And you were in it when you were in your mother's body because there was nothing, there was nowhere to go, in the womb, right? Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Everything's taken care of, pretty safe, right? You don't have language, you don't have words, you don't have nationality, you don't have gender. You're just floating. I call it the Buddha tank. You're floating in the Buddha tank for 9 months doing absolutely nothing. And now we would say, oh my God, that's so boring. I couldn't do that for 9 months. Well, you didn't have a problem, do you? You weren't bored. You were actually in bliss because your focus had no way to go. So it was at rest inside in your core, in that peace, in that love, right? And then you came out, and then you had to get to know the world. And in that process, your awareness, your focus wandered out and you got disconnected. And that's where heartache began.
Well, and you look at babies. Babies are happy. They're happy unless they're hungry or they need to be changed or they're in pain. I mean, it's their natural state until they learn.
Right. But already that's begun because in the womb, they didn't have to deal with hunger and thirst and sleep and
Right.
blankets and all of that. Right. So
Yeah.
that's part of the notion that you gain the world and lose your soul is a normal, natural thing, necessary thing for human beings. What I think where the problem is for human beings is that we don't find our way back because we don't know what heartache is. We don't know that heartache is like the thirst of the heart to get reconnected with the love that we are and the peace that we're in, right? Because we call heartache by the triggers, but the trigger is not the cause. The cause is our normal, natural, necessary disconnection in getting to know the world. And there is not a culture on the planet that I know of that makes human nature, that has made human nature into a teachable field, and that knows what the significance of heartache is in calling you home. Because hunger makes food relevant, and needing to pee makes the toilet relevant, and thirst makes water relevant, and tiredness makes your bed relevant, and heartache makes peace relevant. Heartache makes coming home to yourself relevant. Heartache makes the search for wholeness or the search for oneness or the search for contentment relevant. And so it's just as biological as all the rest of them. Nobody gets told that. So what you tell people is, okay, if you get heartache, whenever you get heartache, don't have to look for it. It comes to you in 100 different guises, right? Something's lost, something doesn't work, something, you had expectation. When you feel heartache, take time, get quiet, sit with it, feel it. You might have a few tears, but it won't kill you. Accept it, acknowledge it, embrace it. Maybe even be grateful for the power it has to take you out of your head and put you back in your body. And then that far behind the heartache is your reconnection to the beauty of your own existence.
Beautifully said.
How cool is that?
Beautifully said.
So that's so the idea is, if you want to get to know yourself, you have to spend some time with yourself.
Yeah. Right. Let's back up for a minute. You
Okay.
said you mentioned a couple minutes ago that we're solar beings.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, what powers the planet?
Yeah. Sun.
Yeah. Right? But not only the sun, because if you got too close to the sun, you would melt your toenails. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be 93 million miles away. Right? So solar energy hits the planet, always half at a time because the other half is dark, right? So it hits the planet, but it's solar energy that has been filtered through 93 million miles of space and then filtered through the Earth's atmosphere. And then whatever remains, so it's call it a solar energy fraction, that activates electrons in green plants mostly. And they then bond between atoms to make molecules. And that solar energy fraction is stored in those bonds. You eat them as food. In your cells, those bonds get broken. That solar energy fraction is released, and now it's called life. And life is what you are in your individual essence. You're not the body. When you say, I'm tired, actually, you're lying to yourself. I'm not tired, but my body is.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, I have a cold, you're lying to yourself. I don't have a cold, but my body does. And the body is subject to breakdown because it's form, and form is subject to breakdown. But the energy that you are, that is also perfect health, aside from being unconditional, empowering love, that flows through you, runs everything, is your leader, is your real leader, right? Because life actually runs everything on the planet, in you, in me, in the grass, in the trees, in everything, right? So that solar energy fraction, we are solar energy gadgets. So is the grass. So are the cows. So are even the poison ivy that you talked about at the beginning, poison ivy makes oxygen for you to breathe. So don't be too hard on it. Don't eat it,
Yeah.
and don't bang yourself on the skin with it because you might get some itches, but it's still making oxygen for you to breathe.
Good point. That's a different way for me to look at that.
Every poisonous plant that's green is making oxygen for you to breathe.
Right.
So don't eat the plant, let it make your oxygen. Maybe part of the reason why it has to be poisonous is so that we don't eat all the plants and then we don't have any oxygen.
I have a gal who I know who's a esthetician, and we were talking about natural lotions and potions and stuff like that. And she goes, well, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good for you. I mean, you're not going to rub poison ivy cream all over your face or your body.
Right.
That always stayed with me. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, and that's true. Then they are. And why is that? Because the plants have to protect themselves from viruses, funguses, bacteria, and human beings.
Yeah.
Right? So some of them are not edible. That's their protection.
Right.
And some of them are edible, and those feed us.
Right.
Right?
Right. How does longing for physical health mirror the longing for spiritual alignment?
There is no longing for physical health.
Okay. Talk more about that.
The longing, what did I call it? Heartache.
Yeah.
Longing is a synonym for heartache. I've got 10 pages of words. Yearning, striving, sadness, sorrow, grief, and you always feel them here. They're always like uneasy, uncomfortable. Something's been lost. Loss is like another big one, right? Blues, loneliness, right? So, and we have so many names for the same feeling in our chest, the uneasy feeling in our chest, because instead of naming it for its nature, we're naming it for its trigger. See, we're not naming it for its cause. The cause is our disconnection from ourselves that happens after we get born into the world, right? But we name it by all the triggers. So then what happens is I'm disconnected from myself. I really got to know my grandmother. She was really nice to me. And then one day she died. Right? And I fall back to my heartache that came from my disconnection. She didn't cause it, but her loss triggered it. It put me back into my default state, the default disconnected state. And if I knew that, then I would sit with that state and would find my connection just behind or within that state. Right? So that's heartache. That's longing, right? That's not physical. Well, it's physical. I mean, you feel it physically.
Well, somebody that wants to have really great health, I mean, that's not necessarily heartache. It's something that they're striving for, and they wanna get educated and figure out what can they do to be healthy.
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you this: when I go and give lectures, I'm really good at what I do. Okay, so I give them really good information that if they put it in practice, they would see positive results. And then I notice that people have listened to the lectures and they never put anything in practice.
Why is that?
Yeah. So, and I met people and I got to talk to them, right? And they came, every guru who came to town, they were there and they took copious notes and they got stack of textbooks. They know everything about everything.
Yeah, but
They're
they
not-
don't integrate it or
No.
implement it. Why?
Well, so the question, that's the question I ask myself because I'm actually trying to help people, right? So I decided that why they don't do it is because they're not inspired. And what I recognized is that as important as giving accurate information is inspiring people, because when you're inspired, inspiration frees energy. And when you have more energy, you're going to do more work, right? And if you're not inspired, you might head in the direction of depression. And when you're depressed, it's kind of, oh, shit, everything's too hard. Oh God, do I have to do that? And you don't really would want to do anything. And if you get really, really, really depressed, you will destroy your own body deliberately because it's just not worth living. So if you deal with the inspiration issue, which goes back to the longing, when I have peace and I feel cared for and feel loved by life, oh my God, what an incredible place I live in. Oh my God, I want to be here for as long as I can, and I will do whatever it takes to have the longest, best life, and I'll do whatever it takes to get it. Right? But that's now a rational decision. So the longing is not for physical health, even though finding your peace is good for physical health too, because you're not interfering with the flow of energy in your body. You're not interfering with your crazy ideas about things that aren't even true, right? So peace is very good for health. But I was taking what you said in terms of physical health, that you make deliberate decisions. How do you make deliberate decisions? Well, you won't do more than you got energy for. And how do you get energy? Well, be in touch with the energy that runs your whole show. It's not, I mean, your life never gets depressed. Only you have thoughts that are depressive.
I am such a sun gal. I need sun. I live in the Southeast US, and I grew up in Ohio where it was gray a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I go for a walk every morning in the sun. If it's raining, I mean, if it's pouring, I'm not going to go out. But if I can have an umbrella and it's not that big of a deal, I'll go out. But back to you were talking about us being solar people, and some people would take that as, okay, we're all star seeds and we all came from a sun planet and all of that. But what is it about, for me, I just feel better. If I start my day with a walk in the sunshine, I just feel better, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yep. I'm 83. I walk around without my shirt all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not
Even in the
doing it to show
wintertime.
off. I'm not doing it to show off my body. I know that sunshine's good for me.
Yeah.
And among other things, it makes vitamin D. And
Right.
vitamin D is also good for mood.
Right.
And omega-3s which are the highest energy molecules, they're also good for mood. And magnesium, which a lot of people are deficient in, like 80%, it's 99% for omega-3s. Vitamin D is about 80%, depending on what your skin color is. More for darker people because that blocks vitamin D production in the body. So I go in the sun all the time. And there's good research that says, all the long wavelengths, the warmth and the infrared and the yellow and orange. Yeah, I have a machine here that has a lamp in it, right? And I can turn that on in winter and, literally bathe myself in morning, evening sunlight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's good for health. I mean, there's research on it. It's good for health and it makes you feel better.
Well,
it's good
and
for your mood.
during the pandemic, I know one of the research items that really came to light was how many people were deficient in vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just mortifying when we saw how people, especially in North America, were so deficient in vitamin D, and that's because nobody goes outside.
Yeah, and nobody said we should take more. But the vitamin D has a really interesting story. When I started working in health, like over 40 years ago, we were told that 400 units a day is what you should take of vitamin D, and you should never take more than 1,000 because you could overdose on it because it's oil soluble and it stores in the body, and you could literally hurt yourself. Well, now they figured this out about maybe 15 years ago. The actual optimum for a guy like me would be somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 units a day.
Right.
So that's like, what is that? 5 to 10 times more than what they said was dangerous that you shouldn't go. Yeah. So who came up with that story? It's not based on science.
Who did come up with that story?
Huh?
Who did come up with that story?
I think you should look for the answer to that.
Somebody that wants to sell you something.
Well, it's either somebody who didn't do good studies. That would be one possibility, or it's somebody who wants to suppress it because they have something else that they want to promote instead. Right? And among humans, between those two, I think there's probably more suppression to sell something else going on than bad research unless the research is with suppression and selling something else in mind.
I agree.
Yeah. So we've done some really stupid things to ourselves.
I agree.
And each other and the planet.
You once described your early life as emerging from, quote, hell with the help from visible and invisible friends.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I didn't know the friend. I was born during the Second World War, and it was intense. First, I was a war baby. Then I was an orphan.
Where did you live during the war?
I was born on a stolen farm in Poland, in 1942. And so when the war ended, long story, I think. Hitler and Stalin made a pact, a non-aggression pact. My father was in Latvia, had a farm there. Latvia went to the Soviet Union as part of the deal. So my father's farm went to the Soviet government. And he hated the communism because they had lots of experience with it over their lifetime. He was born in 1907. And the Bolshevik Revolution started in 1917, right? So they were in all of that crazy change that happened in that area. And part of Poland went to Germany. And my father had German background. So he hated communism, loved the Russian people because they're very rich, feeling rich people, right? Their whole culture is very feeling rich. Communism was a disaster. And he was given a farm in Poland, and he then ended up in the German army. He spoke 5 languages, so he was an interpreter. And he ended up, so he ended up running the stolen farm with the farmer as his farmhand. And I was born on that stolen farm. And then when I was 2, war ended. So we went from war baby, then refugees. We were on dirt roads with horse-drawn hay wagons, no military presence, communists chasing us in tanks and trucks, and the Allies, that's like our side, we think the good guys, they were using us as target practice, shooting us from planes.
What?
The Allies were doing that, yeah.
Yeah, nobody hears that from our
Well, the winter
viewpoint.
rights history, and I think when you look a little deeper, they firestormed Dresden and killed 400,000 refugees because Dresden was mostly refugees fleeing
Um,
from Latvia and Poland and all those places. And so then my mother decided to get off the road. It was winter, but it was safer to go through the snow-covered fields than to stay on the roads because the planes were all shooting at the roads because that's where the people were, right? But she had 6 kids with her, so she had to leave 4 of them behind. I think it's called a Sophie's Choice moment. And I ended up being an orphan. She left me with a farmer, and he then took us, was supposed to take us to relatives, but they had already fled because everybody was fleeing, getting the hell out of there. And so I ended up being an orphan for a while, and then her sister found out about what had happened, and she found us and reunited us with the family. So I grew up never feeling safe.
mhm. How old were you when your mother left you?
2.5.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
a fairly vulnerable age. And then I didn't know what I could trust because every day there was a different story because of the chaos, right? And I remember feeling hungry. And then we were in Germany, and our adults argued so intensely about really stupid things. To me, seemed stupid. And at
Still,
one
we
point I
still
said,
do, don't we?
"Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." But it always made me uneasy because I was very sensitive to it, right? And one day I heard an argument like that, and I said, "Man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony." And this little cocky voice of a 6-year-old who doesn't know how complicated everything is, "I'm gonna find out how." So that was my, kinda like that's what became my that's my direction. That became my direction. How can I make it better? It's gotta be better. It's gotta be possible to make it better than this crazy thing that I've been through. So I was
Was the
always
voice
looking.
what do you think the voice was when you were 6? When
You
you
know
look back at it?
do you know what? You're the first person to ever ask me. I have never thought about it. It
Yeah.
was just I just heard the voice.
I call that a divine download.
Yeah.
Those are
Oh,
divine
okay.
downloads.
And
Yeah.
I've had lots of those. I mean, when I was 15, I was lying in bed and I was socially very not comfortable.
Mhm.
And I was lying in bed and my whole body filled with light. And the message was, I know I'm not socially well adapted, but there's actually nothing wrong with me. It was like, wow. And my teenage years were kind of rough. So that would have been you would call that a download. I've had tons of those. I kind of live in a download world in if you call it that. I go to the quiet place, and in the quiet place, all kinds of stuff show up. All kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. I'm writing, I'm turning total health into a teachable field and human nature into a teachable field, but on all the levels of existence, not just the physical. I don't know why we haven't done that for 200,000 years. Those are the 2 most important questions we have, right? And I get downloads and insights from that. The biggest insight happened when I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be. I was in my 20s. And I decided I had messed with psychedelics. LSD definitely opened the door to my broke down the door to my war baby personality because I never saw options. All of a sudden is, oh my God, what I'm looking for out there is actually already in here.
Mhm.
And I have 1,000 options of how I can live my life. So that was a starting point.
How old were you and where were you at that point?
It was 1964 and I was 22
And where were you at that point?
in Vancouver.
In Vancouver. How did you get from Europe to Vancouver?
Oh, when we made it out to Germany, Then it took 6 years to get the paperwork done to emigrate to Canada. And the reason why is when my father was taken prisoner in Normandy, they took him to Alabama. He picked peaches there in a
Wow.
Red Cross prisoner of war camp. And they went through Quebec on the way to Alabama. And the vegetation in Quebec is a lot similar to the vegetation in Latvia. And he loved birch trees and aspens and evergreens and all that. He said, if I survive the war, I'm going to Canada. So it took 6 years to get the paperwork done. So when I was 10, we left Germany and came to Canada, came to British Columbia. We had a sponsor there that made sure we wouldn't wouldn't become a burden on the government. And
Did you ever reunite with your mother?
Oh yeah, my mother's sister found out what had happened. She then came behind enemy lines by that time.
To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends.